Hello everybody, welcome to English lesson 4. This is your last English lesson for the week. So hopefully you've already done the past 3 lessons where we have done a reading comprehension about our model text. You have done a identified the grammatical features, and you have planned about your own creature. If you haven't done Wednesday's lesson where we planned about our own creature, you really need to go and do that, because that is the basis of the rest of the work. Okay, so it's really important that you do that. So today, let me just share today's lesson with you. We are going to be doing a lesson focusing on punctuation. Okay, so we're going to be using a variety of punctuation. Lots of this punctuation we've come across before, however some of it we haven't, or we're using in a slightly different way. Okay, so it's really important you listen carefully to this video, because I will be showing you what to do in everything. Okay, so first of all, in here, how many types of punctuation can you find? I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to find them. Okay, so hopefully you found lots of different ones. So I'm going to run through them. So we've got hyphens. So hyphens we're going to be looking at in a couple of lessons time, where they stick together words so that you can understand where it doesn't get confused. We have got colons. We have got parentheses. So we've got brackets. We've got commas. We have got capital letters and full stops, everything, of course. We've got colons there. We have got some hyphens there. We've got a colon there. We've got a dash around here somewhere. So we've got dashes. Okay, so we've got lots and lots of different punctuation, all right? And today's lesson, we're going to be going through why this is used. So I have done my planning. So this is my planning, okay? So I've decided to do a unicorn, and I've added lots and lots of detail all about this creature, okay? And I'm going to be using this in today's lesson to write some sentences. So you might need to refer back to your planning when you're doing this lesson, okay? So first of all is parenthesis. Why is it used? So for parentheses, we have got dashes, we might use commas, and we might use brackets. In an informal piece of writing, we generally use dashes and brackets rather than commas. Commas are deemed slightly more of a formal punctuation. So we might show our informality by using dashes and brackets. Okay, so let's read these sentences, which all have different pieces of parentheses in them. These fascinating creatures, part of the magical beetle family, are extremely rare, only to be found in the tundra of northern Russia, where the habitats are freezing cold and hostile. So what is the point of that piece of parenthesis? If we look at it, that piece of parenthesis is because we're adding an extra bit of detail about this fascinating creature, but it's embedded. Okay, so it slips into that sentence. So these fascinating creatures are extremely rare. These fascinating creatures, part of the magical beetle family, are extremely rare. So it's just adding an extra bit into it, and we put brackets around both parts of that. When we are using brackets, we always open with a bracket and close with a bracket, no matter what, if it's at the start of a sentence or the end of a sentence. Okay, not the start of a sentence, in the middle of a sentence or at the end of a sentence. You'd always put that. Okay, so if I had this at the end, I'd still put my full stop after my closing bracket. Next one. This has got lots, but we're just going to focus on the parentheses for now. It should have several different areas for them to use. A small cave constructed from volcanic rocks where they can sleep and relax, a shallow pond for them to bathe in, and an area with a range of bushes and foliage, plants for them to hide in when they need to. So this one is plants. Plants is the issue here, is the parenthesis here. Now, why is that used? So this one was, oh, sorry. I'm going to put a different colour to add extra detail. Okay, and this one is to explain what foliage is. Now then, people may not have come across the word foliage, but foliage means plants. So it's explaining a technical term. So it might be one of those words that we did on our grammatical features lesson, something like a carnivore, or herbivore, or hostile, or territorial. You might want to decide to describe one of those terms. And this is in brackets, but it could be in dashes. It could be in commas as well, but we'd usually put it in brackets. That's the go-to. What about this one? You may feel unsure about how to look after your new beloved pet. It can be quite an anxious time. Don't worry. So this one is a bit different. We've used a dash this time, and it's at the end of the sentence, okay? Oh, that went terribly wrong. It's at the end of the sentence. So if you have a dash at the end of the sentence, this one here is kind of like an aside. It's talking to a reader. So it's what we call it an aside. So it's something that you add on. Aside speaking to the reader. So they're telling them to don't worry. Now then, you may notice something. What is different about this, which is different from brackets because it's at the end? Okay, so in this one, a dash we only use if it's at the end of a sentence and it's not embedded in the middle. We only use one dash. So we wouldn't put dash at the end and then an exclamation mark. We'd just put one dash there. Okay, so you might want to try and use one of those. So that is parenthesis. Okay, and then your work today, you have got lots of different examples, okay, where it says use brackets to add an extra fact to a sentence about where your creature comes from. And then I've written an example sentence. Unicorns are originally from the Galapagos Islands, located in the southern hemisphere, where it is warm and sunny most of the year. So I've written one, so you can then type your own sentence there about your own creature using your own plan. Okay, so that is your work for today, and then that's your parentheses section. Once you've completed your parentheses section, you've then got a commas section. So we're going to look at commas now. Now then, commas are something we've spoken about all year, and we've been doing them a lot. Okay, so we're going to look at these. So blast squirts are carnivores. They only eat meat which must be of the highest quality. So this one is here, the comma. And why is it being used? Didn't anyone recognise what this is? Shout at your computer. It is a relative pronoun. So blast squirts are carnivores. They only eat meat which that's wrong, must be of the highest quality. So this is because it is separating a relative clause. So separating a relative clause. Now then, if that was in the middle of a sentence, you would then put another comma and then you carry on your sentence. Okay, so we use commas to separate our relative clauses. Next one. Although they aren't very active, they need to eat between 50 to 70 kilograms of meat a day to keep them healthy. So that is here. Why is that used? So this is being used because of this kind of word. What kind of word is that? Does anyone know? It is a subordinate conjunction. So this is being used because it's separating a subordinate conjunction. And remember, your subordinate conjunctions start a clause, and it could be because, since, although, whilst, once, due to the fact that, despite. All of those words, they're often on a cloud sheet in the classroom. We would put a subordinate clause. So although they aren't active, we need a breath, so we use that comma. They need to eat between 50 to 70 kilograms of meat a day to keep them healthy. Okay, so to separate a subordinate clause. Okay, and then finally we've got this one. They prefer to consume raw meat of Arctic hares, Arctic wolves, or even polar bears. So why is this one being used? This is being used because, very simplistically, it is a list. Okay, and we've got three things here. So we have our comma here, and then we use an or and an and. Okay, so I've chosen or even, but I could be and a polar bears. Okay, now then, you may notice in this list as well, something else we're moving on to is using a colon to introduce it. So the raw meat of Arctic hares, Arctic wolves, and even polar bears. Okay, so we've used a colon there as well, which we'll be getting into in the next one. So once you've done, now you understand that, you've got another piece of the worksheet which tells you to use, gets you to practice using commas and writing sentences, including those using these kind of ways. So you've got one with a relative clause, one to separate a subordinate clause, and one for a list. So if you've watched this, use these examples and the examples on the sheet to help you write it. So finally, we're moving on to semicolons and colons. So this is a colon. Okay, you've got two kind of full stops, but one floating, and this is a semicolon. You've got a dot and then a comma underneath it. Okay, so let's look at why these are being used. Watch carefully how your pet devours its food. Colon. It liquidizes it using acid. It is a sight that will always amaze you. So why is that being used there? Now that colon is separating two clauses which are linked. Okay, so watch carefully whilst your new pet devours its food. It liquidizes it using acid. What word is it replacing? Does anyone know? We did this before in Harry Potter. It is because. So it replaces because. So if we use that, watch carefully because how your new pet devours its food because it liquidizes it using acid. So that is a because there. Okay, so we can use a colon for that. As we just said, we can also use a colon for a simplistic list. Okay, so in this one here, it should have several different areas for them to use. Colon. A small cave constructed from volcanic rocks where they can sleep and relax, a shallow pond for them to bathe in, and an area with a range of bushes and foliage plants for them to hide in when they need to. So we start a list with a colon for them to use, colon, a small cave. Okay, so it's starting my list. We also have this one up here, and we use this, if you notice in our model text, to punctuate our subheadings. So providing a home for your blast end to screw it, and then you've got a colon. It means that it's just a bit of punctuation that then says that you're going to continue underneath with your main explanation. So that is another way. So we've got them to punctuate subheadings and to start a list. Now let's come to our semicolon. And then what is the difference between this list here, okay, which uses a comma, and this list here? First of all, it's way longer. So we use semicolons when we are using an expanded or an extended list. This is a longer list. So if we look at this one, it should have several different areas to use. And then I'm going to say a small cave, a shallow pond, and in an area with a range of bushes and foliage. So that would be my simple list. It should have several areas to use for them to use: a small cave, a shallow pond, and an area with a range of bushes and foliage. However, in this, we have added extra detail explaining why it has those things. So we've used kind of relative clauses, okay, but I've removed the relative pronouns for them to use. So if we look at this, we've then got, it should have several different areas for them to use: a small cave constructed from volcanic rocks where they can sleep and relax. So you've got the where there. A shallow pond for them to bathe in, and foliage and plants for them to hide in. So I'm explaining why they need those things. Because we're using commas to separate those things in our list and our relative clauses, we need to use a semicolon to separate those two things. So I've got a separate one here. So this is the main structure of it. So here is, oh, for goodness sake. This is the introducing the list. Okay. Then I've got such as, so then I've got thing one, which I'm talking about, and then I've got a relative clause. So here, a small cave, which is thing one, constructed of volcanic rock, which is a bit of an extra detail, where they can sleep and relax. Yeah? Then a shallow pond. So this is thing two, and I've separated that with a semicolon. Okay, thing two, and then this is my relative clause about that. But then I've got to use, because I'm only doing three, I've got to use an and. So I don't use a semicolon this time, I use an and this would be thing three. Ooh. And then finally a relative clause about this one. Okay, so it's just a way, it's tricky, and we struggle with it in class every year, so don't worry about it. But that is how you would do it. Okay, now then, on your worksheet, you have got an example of each of these. So you can literally take how I've written it if you wanted to, and you could do that. So you can use the list that I've used. You could kind of take out and replace it and innovate it with your own stuff. Okay, and that is today's lesson. All right, so today's lesson is done. It's quite a lot to remember, but use what is on the sheet and it will really, really help you. Okay, guys? And it's just about practicing. If you don't understand the expanded list, have a go. That is the challenging one for you to use. All right, guys? If you need help, remember that we are always here to help you. Miss Furley's got a drop-in session at 11 a.m. where she can help you out with it all as well. Okay? And I look forward to seeing all your work, guys. Bye.